Mercedes needs to go electric. Well, actually all automakers need to go electric. But what does the automaker who has set the high water mark for luxury do? Well, they could have just stuck an EV powertrain in the S-Class and called it a day. But Mercedes didn't do that. Instead, it did something else. They built the EQS. Starting at over $102,000, the EQS has all the technological wonders you'd expect from a high-end EV. But it also has something else, something that's very important to Mercedes, especially when you're asking for this much money: luxury. Before we get into the bits about the range and the gigantic hyperscreen and the drag coefficient, let's just get to the core of what the EQS is, and it's essentially an S-Class by another name. It has all the luxury trappings of a proper Mercedes luxury vehicle, and it's going to impress and delight the kings of a small European nation you never heard of, or the CEO of a mid-sized company. They'll be happy driving the EQS if they don't feel like getting an S-Class. Being pampered also means not stopping to charge every 200-ish or so miles. The EQS 450 Plus has a range of 350 miles from a 107.8 kilowatt hour capacity pack. Now the EQS 580, the more powerful all-wheel drive version of this vehicle, it has a little bit less range, 340, so it's not really that much less. Either way, if you're paying a lot of money for a luxury vehicle, you don't want to be sitting around waiting for it to charge. Both vehicles support plug-in charge from a variety of charging networks, including Electrify America. That means I just pull the vehicle up, I plug it into the charging station, and it recognizes this car in order to start charging you or give you your free charge. And then you can just go back to sitting in your car or do some shopping, or maybe just go get some delicious pancakes from the IHOP nearby. The EQS supports charging up to 200 kilowatts via DC fast charging stations. Now, Mercedes says that the vehicle will go from 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes. Now, that's a little less than Tesla's current Model S charge rate of 250 kilowatts, and a lot less than the Porsche Taycan and Audi E-Tron GT, which both support charging up to 350 kilowatts. That said, anything in the 200 kilowatt range is notable, as stations that pump out more than 150 kilowatts of juice are still not that widespread. All that energy powers a single motor in the back of this rear-wheel drive vehicle to the tune of 329 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. The result is a quickish acceleration of 5.5 seconds from 0 to 60. Remember though, this is a big luxury vehicle. Plus, if you want more power, there's also the all-wheel drive EQS 580 with 516 horsepower and 611 pound-feet of torque. And there is the upcoming AMG tuned version of the EQS, which should be very fast, you know, if you're into that sort of thing. Regardless of the size, the EQS is very nimble, especially at low speeds, thanks to rear wheel steering. Now this is standard, you get 10 degrees of turning from the rear tires, which is great because even after a week of driving this vehicle in parking lots and doing U-turns, I was always surprised at how well it navigated around those areas. Behind the wheel, actually driving the EQS, it's a nice experience, to be honest. It's quiet, it's an EV, so it's smoother, it's quieter, it doesn't have the vibration, doesn't have the engine noise that you would get in the S-Class. And because of that, I think if you're looking for luxury, the EQS is probably the better car. It's quieter, doesn't vibrate as much, it just rolls, it's smooth. And if you do want noise, it is available. In fact, if you put in sport mode, you can actually hear their little weird spaceship noise. And it sounds like we're going to space, or at least Burning Man. Beyond the interior noise, how it actually drives, the steering is solid. It's a drive-by-wire system, so it doesn't have the feel of the road that you would get from an enthusiast car, but it's also a luxury car, so it's not really something I think most luxury drivers are looking for. And to be realistic, most luxury vehicles are drive-by-wire at this point. They all sort of feel the same. I don't think this would be any better if it were in a gas-powered vehicle. It is fine, it is adequate. Luxury buyers will never notice it. What is weird is the brakes. Most of the time they're fine, but every once in a while it's trying to figure out like how much it wants to use recuperation with the motors or how much it wants to use the friction brakes. Sometimes you put the brakes on and the throw's a little too far. The amount the pedal has to move before it actually initiates braking. Sometimes it feels like you're going an extra couple inches, and it's a little off-putting. Driver's assistance wise, Mercedes still has one of the best systems on the road, but it is kind of falling behind other systems when it comes to hands-free, at least here in the United States. GM has Super Cruise, Ford has Blue Cruise, BMW has a hands-free system when you're driving under, say, 40 miles an hour on the freeway. Mercedes doesn't have that in the United States, but in Germany in the next few months, they're hoping to launch not just hands-free, but eyes-free. You wouldn't have to pay attention, essentially like a level 3 system in the EU. Now, they want to bring that to the United States at some point, but while the EU has a nice set of rules that they've just implemented for those types of systems, the United States is still a bit of a regulatory patchwork. So good luck to Mercedes bringing that over here. Still, the driver's assistance system on this vehicle is incredibly smooth, even with people who cut in front of you with cut-ins. It is smooth to accelerate, it's smooth to brake, it's smooth with the automatic lane change. Everything it does without being overly aggressive, which is terrifying, or overly cautious, which is annoying. It's also really nice because of the heads-up display and the augmented reality system. When you do the auto lane change, it actually shows a big arrow that like shows the lane you're about to go to, and as you're moving over into that lane, it'll straighten the arrow out. You just gotta see it. If you're a fan of the lane change arrow, you'll be a huge fan of the floating augmented reality navigation arrows. Previously in MBUX, the system would show arrows on the infotainment screen. You know, you're gonna turn left up here, boop, the world appears on the screen. You see it's telling you to go right. It tells you where to go right. If you're doing a roundabout, it's awesome. Now that system is here in the heads-up display and is outstanding. It is one of the best things about navigation ever, because if you're in a very weird intersection, or you're in a town you don't know very well, or if you're like me a few months ago, you're in Europe and you don't know where you're going, that floating arrow is a lifesaver, especially in roundabouts with like 8 exits. But it could also be a lifesaver in any sort of town that has more than a 4-way stop. We've all been to the town that has 6 roads leading to 1 intersection. Why? I don't know. City planners, they do whatever they want. And so the little arrow will tell you which way to go. I'm a huge fan, and I'll be very happy when this A, permeates the rest of the Mercedes-Benz line, but B, ends up in other vehicles in the future. And speaking of the dash, the Hyperscreen, it is, well, it's huge. It's one giant 56-inch piece of Gorilla Glass that spans from the left to the right of the vehicle, and inside of it, it has 3 different displays. It has your dash cluster, it has your infotainment screen, and it has the bonus passenger side screen. Now, the passenger side screen is kind of intriguing because it allows the passenger to control media, to control navigation. They could listen to music from this screen via Bluetooth over their own Bluetooth headset. So they can listen to music that you're not listening to. So if you want to listen to, say, Lizzo, and they want to listen to System of a Down, everyone in the car is happy. And that brings us to the least S-Class aspect of the EQS, and that is the design. The S-Class, it looks amazing. It looks like an S-Class. The EQS, it's just kind of here. It's not intriguing. It actually looks sort of just bulbous. And of course, the design is the reason it has that incredible drag coefficient of 0.2, but the design is also what people like about a car. I'm not a huge fan of it. Meanwhile, the inside looks great. The outside, not so much. But you spend most of your time in here, which is nice because the front and the back seats are actually quite comfortable. And what's nice is that even though I have the seat pushed back because I am tall, I can jump to the back seat and I still have plenty of legroom. What I don't have is a lot of headroom. At 6'3", my head and my hair are actually touching the roof. So if you're a tall passenger, if you're someone who's looking for a passenger vehicle, you're gonna sit in the back end, say you're a tall CEO, the EQS might not be the ideal luxury vehicle for you. The EQS also ships with the latest version of MBUX, which has this new thing called the zero-layer concept. The idea is that only things you need will be on the screen, and so you have navigation on all the time. And then if you're playing music, the music player will pop up. If you're gonna use the phone, that will pop up. It has the EQ thing, it'll pop up. Only items that you use on a regular basis will pop up. And what it'll do is over a few weeks while you're driving, it'll actually learn your routine. So if you always go to a certain location at a certain time, it'll pop up and say, hey, do you wanna go to location A? You always go to location A on Wednesdays. Do you wanna go? And you can say yes. And that's really nice. What's weird is that even though this display, it's huge, it's this huge, beautiful display, it's also obscured by the steering wheel. It's obscured by this much. And Mercedes knows this, so it moved everything over that much. The EQ button, the button that adjusts how you see the navigation, it's all been moved over a little bit. And that's fine and dandy. It's weird that, you know, they knew you weren't gonna be able to see this all the time. Where it gets weird though is when you're using CarPlay, because Apple doesn't know that you can't see this part of the vehicle. So this part of the display on the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto is, well, it's obscured by the steering wheel, and that's odd. Mercedes, like other automakers, needs to transition to EVs. It could have phoned it in and tried to make its S-Class an electric vehicle with too little range because the vehicle's architecture wouldn't have supported a large battery pack. Instead, the automaker built the EQS, a proper luxury EV. A car built for the future, a future where the elite continue to be pampered while feeling a little bit better about the environment. For more automotive coverage next to a lake that leaves way more water, be sure to subscribe to Engadget.